Joining us now to review some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is a Rice News analyst, Emmanuel Efeni. Good morning, Emmanuel.
Good morning, Ruben. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning, Ayo.
Good morning, sir.
We'll start the review with this day, Nigeria's newspaper of record. The lead story will be Atiku. Two others want Tribunal to void Tinubu's declaration as president-elect. Declare me winner of presidential election will be tells Tribunal. Says Tinubu Shetima not qualified to be on ballot. 6 president-elect's disqualification on account of U.S. drug-related forfeitures accuses INEC of suppressing votes in 18,088 polling units. Refusal to present forms EC8A, EC8B in Rivers for inspection. Now, the tribunal have taken their seat. The candidates who are not satisfied with the outcome of the presidential election have gone to the tribunal, and Obi is there. And if we just look at how the Nigerian Tribune is reporting this story, Atiku, Obi, APM, AA filed petitions to nullify Tinubu's victory. Yes, Obi's case, yes, as stated here, Tinubu Shetima not qualified to contest. Tinubu can't be declared winner due to not scoring 25% in FCT. Alleges he stands ineligible to contest due to $460,000 fine linked to dishonesty, narcotics trafficking. February 25 election invalid by reason of corrupt practices and non-compliance with provisions of Electoral Act 2022. Praise Tribunal to declare him winner of presidential election. That's Obi's case. Action Alliance praised Tribunal to nullify presidential election by reason of unlawful exclusion of its candidate, while the Allied People's Movement case is that by provision of Section 131C and 142 of the Constitution and Section 35 of Electoral Act 2022, the declaration and return of Tinubu as elected president are invalid. So, of course, the details of the PDP Atiku's case yet to be made available. So, these are the scenarios. The lawyers are ready. The tribunal is seated. Of course, expect Asiwaju Bola Tinubu's team, 50 senior advocates of Nigeria, we heard they have assembled, will also make their response. So let the fireworks begin. But this is how it should be. It's part of the democratic process. If you are not satisfied with the outcome of the election, you go to the tribunal. That is what these parties have done right now. How the tribunal will rule, or can they upturn the presidential election result? Will Bola Ahmed Tinubu eventually triumph at the tribunal and ultimately at the Supreme Court? We are here watching as journalists to bring the news, the reports to our audience globally. Now, other stories, if I just go back to the front page of this day, this is a story I must not miss. Emefiele apologizes for deluge of online transactions failure. If you go to the banks now, the crowd you see there are people who have come to complain about transactions they made that were not successful. Accounts, funds deducted from accounts, and they cannot get credit at the other end. So it is something that the banks have to deal with, improve their technology, because we encourage people to go cashless, but where we have this huge deluge of online transactions failure, then it's a problem in itself. Emefiele and the banks must do something about that. Now, if we look at the Daily Trust newspaper, governorship polls, defeated candidates reject results in Kano, Lagos, Bauchi, Delta, others. Urge supporters to remain calm, head for court. Protests rock Ogun, Nasarawa, Abia. Politicians must be ready to prove their cases, lawyers are saying. Of course, the lawyers are busy. It is their season because a lot of lawyers will be hired to defend and the various parties or to present the cases of those who believe they won and have been cheated. So we'll hear we'll hear much on that as the days go ahead. The front page of the Daily Trust, there you see the photograph. Women protest alleged manipulation of Nasarawa governorship election. And of course, on the right, Labour Party supporters protest over delay in release of results in Abia State. Of course, you had that very extensive conversation with Sonny Eroche, a member of the Abia League of Professionals, on the situation in Abia State. So we hope INEC will do the needful so that Enugu and Abia will bring the results out. There should be a conclusion. Whoever is not satisfied, they know what to do. They go to the tribunal and stake their claim there so that you don't put unnecessary tension in those states. Because once you conclude, whoever is declared the winner, whoever is not satisfied will go to the tribunal and stake their claim there. Now, the Vanguard newspaper, Tinubu sues for peace, condemns ethnic slurs, election violence. And of course, the Daily Sun also reporting that story. Tinubu condemns ethnic war over election. Flays post-poll asking physical verbal assault is called hypocritical, says PDP. Yes, the president-elect, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has come out with that statement. Yes, I would have expected him to say something when all these threats were going on before the election. You don't wait after one party has benefited from the spoils of thuggery, from the spoils of this kind of ethnic profiling before you make your statement. That is not how to be presidential. If Bola Ahmed Tinubu, on the eve of that election, had come out to say, no, we cannot profile our Igbo brothers in Lagos because, you know, I appointed Igbos into my cabinet, I'm sure the story would have been different. Those who were macheted for trying to go out and vote, those who were hit by all kinds of objects because they come out to vote, perhaps they wouldn't have got that kind of treatment. So you want to say better late than never, but I expected that that call should have come before the election. Then we'll have seen the altruism in that call. But for now, it's like medicine after death. Of course, the Nation newspaper reporting this story, President-elect, election is over, it's time for healing. Rofa, you always say there has to be justice before healing. So we'll see how it pans out. Now, the Guardian newspaper, operating license not a right, Emefiele wants bank chiefs. As CBN tightens credit squeeze, raises interest to historic 18%. MPR in sync with economic realities. Experts argue impact of SVB's failure in Nigeria, other African markets in focus at US summit. CBN has taken steps to insulate local banks from risk, Emefiele assures. Now, if I look at the foreign newspapers quickly, yes, the Times of London, of course, this story will interest women and men who care like me. Yes, Ruben, don't smile. Now, the story is this. Pill and coil shown to raise breast cancer risk. According to a study of contraceptives finds that 25% increase in the risk of breast cancer. Taking the pill or other forms of hormonal contraception increases the risk of breast cancer by 25%, according to this research carried out by researchers at the Oxford University. Ruben Rufai and Ayo.
I think we need to be able to talk and say the truth every time, which is balance. When we hear messages like we call for peace, elections are done, I think we should be careful when we say them. A lot of people are hurt. You can't just say they should heal without them getting justice. As we're on air, you were speaking, I showed Dr. Abati and Ayo a video that people sent me. As I am, I'm traumatized. My weekend was inundated with trauma because a lot of people kept on reporting these cases to me. And when you see videos like that, how gory it is, you want people to just heal when they don't see justice? Please, I ask these politicians that are talking of healing, if it was their children that was stabbed and brutalized this way,
and macheted
this way, Mr. Ifeni, I know you know, but I will show you too, so that for reference
I've seen some of these videos you're talking
if it was their own children that was, and the people that instigated this violence are walking free, will they be able to take it? You see, please, test yourself with this before you do it unto others. Do unto others. We want peace, we want reconciliation, but it will only come where justice will prevail. And that's why we're calling on, those in authority to set up a committee to be able to look at those that perpetrated election violence. Those that can be identified should be picked up.
And we have extant laws.
And we have a lot of laws.
Those people.
So once you prosecute them, then you will have the temerity to talk about healing. Then we'll sit down on the table and say, yes, because we need to heal and build our country. That's important. But healing will be done with justice.
Absolutely. And just to mention, Mr. Ifeni, in terms of you talking about the role or the impact of the president-elect speaking up before elections, how powerful that would have been. And that would have sent a strong message, especially if he wants people to believe that indeed he is for non-violence. Just a word from him. And like you said, because he actually has represented the multi-ethnic nature of Lagos State in terms of his appointments. One of the things we praised him for is the fact that he'd found a way of bringing the Igbos, the Yorubas, and other ethnic groups in Lagos State together. So a strong statement from him before these atrocities were committed over the last weekend, and the words and the slurs had happened would have gone a long way. Then going back to the president's statement around, and that's on the front page of the This Day newspaper, just very quickly, where he says he's happy that Nigerians now realize their voting power, and the key parts where the U.S. envoy, Muhammad Buhari, yes. U.S. envoy advises the president to remove fuel subsidy before leaving. There's been a call for that. Currently, the deadline is meant to be June, and what that portends for the next president, pardon?
May 29.
May 20. No, I mean like the removal of subsidy.
The end of May. So from June 1, there should be no subsidy if we go by that.
All right.
The new president will have to deal with that.
Exactly. So the point I was trying to make is that if he wants to provide an inroad, a soft landing perhaps for the new president, then that is the call for the president to do. Bite the bullet. Your ministers have said it countless times, bite the bullet, do it, and let's see if you're able to leave that legacy as well.
Okay. Well, the Americans issued a statement after these gubernatorial and state elections generally in Nigeria. And the key message that, the U.S. has put out is that, one, Nigeria must deal with electoral offenders, that the ethnic profiling, the violence, the abuse of the process should not be something that should be swept under the, carpet. And that's why, it is important that we keep harping on the need for justice. However, the problem with electoral offenses in Nigeria is that the framework for it is very weak. And that's why we've been saying we need to return to the electoral offenses bill that was passed in July 2021, yes, by the
Senate.
By the Senate, and with the House of Reps refused to pass, even with President Buhari giving the assurance that once it is passed, he will sign it into law. And then, of course, INEC itself has asked for that electoral offenses bill to reduce the burden on it. Now, if you don't deal with electoral offenses, there will be a reign of impunity. And what you get is a kind of statement that comes from politicians. Oh, we have to unite. We have to heal and reconcile. Of course, yes. This country is in need of healing. Because if there's anything that this 2023 electoral process has done, is that it has further divided us. In some regards, it has taken us back to the Civil War era or pre-Civil War era in terms of divisions, suspicion, lack of trust among our communities. And for us to address all the major issues that we face, whether it's inflation or energy crisis, the people must come together, they must reconcile, they must heal. Will these wounds heal? Will the people recover from the injuries that they have suffered, both mental and physical? So when Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu now issues a statement, and he says we need to heal, we need to reconcile, and he says, come, let us work together, the time of election is over, this is now time to govern. Well, what he's actually doing here, I've said it here, he's trying to own the game. Look at the timing. On the same day that 4 political parties went to the tribunal to challenge his election, he issues a statement saying, look, we have to move on. We have to unite this country. I'm ready to work. Join me to work. It's called Rose Garden politics. Rose Garden politics, that's when, you know, you make appearances, you know, other people are going this way, but you try to stay in charge, stand like a statesman. So it's not as if he's just issuing those statements. It's not as if he doesn't know what's going on. It's called Rose Garden politics.
Yes, but we must see through,
yes,
through this,
but the point,
what looks like a gimmick.
The point, well, I won't use the word gimmick, but the point to be made, the point to be made, you know, it's politics. Politics is all about strategy. So, you know, the point to be made, however, is that nobody should play the ostrich and pretend that all is well or what happened can just be wished away like that. The second issue that I wanted to draw attention to is that of Boris Johnson, who is going to face the Privileges Committee in the House of Commons today.
Yes, the Guardian newspaper,
for
the Guardian of London has
4 hours of televised hearing.
Yes, perhaps you just put that paper up.
And the Privileges Committee is going to go back to Partygate. And he is going to appear before that committee to argue that, in fact, he didn't do anything wrong in any deliberate manner or in any intentional manner. 2 things could come out of it. If he's indicted by that committee, that could be the end of his political career because he could be suspended from parliament. But if he gets away with it, if he convinces the committee, maybe, his sins will be forgiven, and then he could play a major role in the future in the Conservative Party. But what is my point? My point here is that this is a prime minister that has already been pushed out of office. He goes back to parliament. But even then, that country is still asking him to come and answer a query.
Yes, no.
So that's, the democratic standard, about accountability,
about
integrity.
The evil that men do live with them.
About how,
they don't just go away.
About how the system works. But here in Nigeria, if you misbehave, once you are no longer out of the office, what by now his kinsmen, people from his village, will have come forward to say, leave him alone. Yes. After all, you people have removed him as prime minister.
Yes.
So there are lessons that we can learn from other jurisdictions. And I see that, this is one example of how we can learn. Rishi Sunak, of course, is being asked to come and also, testify. But, Rishi Sunak is not interested. He doesn't want to get involved. And, the story is that, Boris Johnson will go there and say, Dominic Cummings hates me. Yeah. That's why he was saying all those things about me. But the residue of it is about a country that has memory.
Yes.
And that holds people down
and people
to certain standards of behavior.
Their actions.
The major link in our own election here and this democratic process is that people just toyed with values.
Yeah.
They trampled upon standards, and they did it in such a brazen manner that you then ask yourself, what is the future for Nigeria? If people just behave as they like and they think they can just get away with it. I hope that the tribunal and the various tribunals that will come up will do justice.
Yeah.
Because it is when people see that justice has been done that they can, in fact, begin to heal.
Yeah.
And from healing, maybe they will move to reconciliation.
So,
and all of us can come together and build this country.
All eyes on the judiciary.
All eyes on the judiciary. And one other thing, please, I'd like to say. Please, as the name of the judges that will serve on this case are read out, Nigerians must profile them. We must know their antecedents. We must know what they stood for. We must put the searchlight on them. Because we are not just looking at an election here. We are looking at the future and the hope of generations yet unborn. We are fighting for the soul of a country. Real quickly, people that can't attend debates, what do you expect them to do? People that can't attend debates. And just to second what you said, Dr. Abati, Ehud Olmert, former leader of Israel, went to jail after he left office. I think that was even for a sexual scandal or something. Accountability must be order of the day. Yeah. It's as simple as that.
Khan in Pakistan,
yes,
he's been charged because he collected gifts that he did not declare.
Yes.
In Nigeria here, only God knows how we do our own things.
How many undeclared? Just one more point on the international scene. There was a very insightful opinion poll by the editorial board of the Washington Post titled "Nigerians Point the Way Towards Democracy in a Region in Which It is Scarce." And people have praised it as perhaps one of the most balanced observations in terms of reporting of the Nigerian elections. I'm grateful that whilst they pointed out some of the things that didn't quite work out, they were also quick to note some of the things that we should perhaps be amplifying in terms of the departure from the way we ran elections. The first thing they talked about was the fact that, as Dr. Abati had mentioned, candidates who are not happy with the outcome of the elections are able to seek redress in the courts.
Yep.
Say what you will about the court processes, the confidence in the courts, they're still able to do that rather than perhaps going on the streets going up in flames. And that's why there was this headline in the Punch newspaper that talked about protests rocking Ogun, Abia, Nasarawa poll results, and just to de-escalate that and instead ask that they told the lines of the presidential candidates who have got, sought redress and presented their prayers before the courts this morning. Secondly, they talk about the military interference, where in the past would have been an opportunity for perhaps a military takeover. We haven't seen that. We've still been able to maintain democracy since 1999, despite the upheavals. So pointing that out, I thought that was really quite important. And then that this was the most competitive election since 1999, the three-horse race rather than the traditional two-horse race. Here we had the APC, the PDP, the Labour Party, each of them pulling 12 states. If you count the FCT.
Over 8 million, over 6 million,
excellent turnout in that regard. And then when you compare with our African counterparts, we see just how well we've done. I think it's Macky Sall of Senegal who is looking to seek a third term despite constitutional provisions of only 2 terms, and still, saying that perhaps he'll pursue a third term. So looking at how far we've come, despite what has been reported in terms of irregularities in the elections, we must pat ourselves on the back. I thought that was quite a balanced report of the Nigerian elections by the Washington Post.
I mean that's quite balanced by the Washington Post, as regards the fact that there are gains from it. What are the gains? The very first time a lot of Nigerians, came out also for the process. But voter apathy is still a big problem because of voter suppression. We had 93 million registered voters. We didn't get up to 25 million that were accredited to vote who becomes the president in this country. Where did the rest 70 million people go? A lot of voter suppression, a lot of apathy. We should also look at that. Also, there are gains because for the very first time, like you said, we have a 3-horse race, which has never been the case. I think the last time probably we had it all split out was 79 elections, where you had people, and these were political gladiators and juggernauts. But for the very first time, we've had something that have excited the base of the young people. That's another good one. But also this article talks about the shenanigans of INEC. What went wrong as regards the promises made and promises not delivered? What went wrong as regards the process that is now being challenged? Also, the fact that a lot of people dropped the ball. The security agents, a lot of people were killed, were hurt. I mean, I was speaking to somebody yesterday that said he went through many condolence visits yesterday. In fact, from a certain family in Rivers State, 2 people, polling agents, died. They were shot needlessly. And that's why we keep calling on justice. So it's good for Washington Post to say this. But everybody knows the fact that there were flaws in the electoral process. There are gains. We celebrate the gains. We are not oblivious of the blames. But also the flaws were things that should never have happened in the first place. The flaws were things that are akin to Thomas Hobbes' days, where the society becomes brutish. I mean, how can you stab somebody and force somebody at gunpoint to vote somebody against his own choice, what he doesn't want to vote? So the flaws were glaring, but also they are good signs. And so I say the true heroes here are Nigerians that defied the violence and voted for their choice.
Ruben, just before you come in, I think the gains we have made are clear. But what became very worrisome is that between 1999 and now, we thought we were making serious progress. Yeah. But the level of violence that politicians employed this time around seem to have just bring down what we thought was gains. But I think going forward, we must now think, how do we correct these wrongs? INEC, we have to do proper auditing of INEC. And I just hope the next president will be able to speak in the manner Musa Yar'Adua spoke. The election that brought me to power was flawed. Whoever eventually emerges after the Supreme Court judgment and will take steps to correct all these loopholes we saw in this election. I think that will be the real gain that we have made. Because if nothing is done, a repeat of this same, then we'll just be having a degeneration. Ruben.
Okay. The opinion by Washington Post is just one opinion. Editorial boards express their opinion, they publish. It's not as if, it's the holy grail.
Yeah.
Other newspapers may have different opinions. So what can be established is that in this Nigeria's election, there have been various opinions. However, the editorial by the Washington Post appears even-handed. Others may not be so even-handed. But in terms of the gains, the points that the editorial has raised should be emphasized. The first one is that there has been no insurrection in Nigeria as a result of the way the election has been conducted.
Given what has been happening in West African countries.
They contrasted the Nigerian situation, not even with West African countries, with Brazil, where after the election of Jair Bolsonaro, people trooped to the streets. They recognize the fact that despite the heated political rhetoric, the Nigerian military has remained professional. And that, of course, is a fact. They've not tried to disrupt the system in any way. They promise to help to defend Nigerian democracy, and they've remained professional in terms of their obligations. Number three, the editorial points out that this has been the most competitive, democratic election since Nigeria's return to democracy in 1999, and that indeed is true. Other international observers have said you can't deny the fact that Nigerians have an appetite for democracy. Some people will use the word enthusiasm or zeal. And indeed, if you look at how people showed interest in this election, yes, that appetite for democracy is very strong. However, people were denied opportunities because of the glitches, because of the failure, and some of the problems we had. One other point made by the Washington Post, which I also think we can agree with, is that, look, Nigeria's example sets the path for other countries in Africa. We've had, and that's against the background of cases of military intervention that we have had, which amounted to a reversal of the democratic consolidation process in Africa, in Guinea, in Mali, in neighboring countries just on top of Nigeria there, with Nigeria, in fact, having to intervene in many of those cases. So Nigeria, even surviving this plot process, will send a strong signal. But my favorite part of the editorial would seem to be two parts. The fact that people have chosen the means of going to court, to tribunals. That should be encouraged. These cases can still be filed up till March 31st, and the courts will have 180 days within which to determine the cases. Now, the second point is this paragraph. Let me look for it. It says, but a delicate period lies ahead. But a delicate period lies ahead. That's a very strong message. And it says, if President-elect Tinubu is eventually confirmed as the winner, he will need Nigerians to fully accept that he was the legitimate victor. So, on the other hand, they are raising the issue of legitimacy. So how does the president-elect convince Nigerians? So that's part of the challenge forward. This means the losing candidates should have their day in court and be able to present any evidence that election day problems affected the final result. So, you know, these are the issues here, and I think that it's an informed opinion for the most part of it. But, you know, there will be other opinions, of course. What is important is not just the opinions being expressed. It's for Nigerians to be able to address the issues arising from this process and to learn the appropriate lessons about electoral reform, about technology, about punishing electoral offenders, about realizing that in all instances, we must always put Nigeria first, not tribe, not religion, not ethnicity. We still have a long way to travel, as the editorial suggests. I rest my case.